All right. How is everybody doing today? I'm Jayme CheeseSlice, the engineer and producer of Uncontrolled Opposition. Today we had some technical issues recording our live show, so I am redoing the introduction. Our guest today is John Kiriakou, and he is a brand ambassador for Panquake. It is a new social media platform that is going to be rolling out. Something we didn't really get to share during the live stream, so I want to share it now. So this is Panquake, and it is a new social media platform. And this is the website you can go to sign up for it. I believe right now it's $5 a month to be a member, but it hasn't quite rolled out yet to everybody. But you can get on the list and be one of the first people to be able to use it when it has the wide release. But they have some other neat tools there as well. So this right here is John Kiriakou's article on Covert Action Magazine, where John is talking about what he's going to be talking about today on the show. The URL for this is very, very long. The entire title of this article is in the URL. So Panquake has a neat tool that you can use to shorten the links. Now, there's other ones out there that exist, but they track you. And the appeal of the Panquake is that it's not going to track you. You just can use the service. There isn't going to be a paper trail or a digital paper trail for somebody to follow you and kind of try to identify who you are. So what I can do is come over here to panquake.me, and this is a tool that you can use to shorten a link. So I'm going to copy and paste the link from Covert Action Magazine. And I copied it. There we go. I pasted it, and it's very, very long. And you could see like this is the whole link right here. Very, very long. And if I wanted to share that link, and I have on a platform where I have a character limit, that's going to be a problem. But this will solve that problem. So I type in that Covert Action Magazine link into here, and then I click this button, and it's going to give me a short link for me to use to share with other people. And so right there, that's all I'm going to need to share with some people. So that's one of the products that they offer that goes along with the Panquake social media service, which is not available to the public just yet, but hopefully will be soon. But the nice thing about these two products is that they don't track you, they don't follow you. And then when John gets on the show, he's going to talk about why has it been taking so long for them to deploy these products. Well, the big reason for that is, spoiler alert, they were debanked. They had all their assets frozen for about 9 months and without explanation. And it did a lot of damage to the company. I mean, a lot of the backers for this project are upset because they think that they're not going to deliver. Anyhow, that's what they're going to talk about today on the show. Now, if you've never watched Uncontrolled Opposition before, the reason I come onto the show first, just to introduce the show and tell people what's going on. This is actually a radio program, but we record it live in the YouTube studio so people can see how things go. And sometimes there's errors and mistakes, but those get edited out for the radio. But you get to see them here live. We're going to record for about an hour, and then at the end, we're going to come back on, just have a general discussion that won't be on the radio. So that's what you watch the live streams for all the stuff that gets cut. So I'm going to hand it over to Gloria right now, and she's going to start the show that you're going to see go onto the radio. But this still won't have any of the edits that I will have to make later. But I just cut out the technical difficulties we had at the very beginning. So enjoy this episode, and I'll be back on at the tail end, and we'll wrap up the show then. Enjoy this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to Uncontrolled Opposition, where together we battle mind wars with truth strikes. I'm Gloria Guillo, an investigative journalist, and I'm here with my co host, Professor Jayme Kuzmarov, managing editor of Covert Action magazine, CAM. Today's guest is our friend and colleague at CAM, John Kiriakou. John's a whistleblower, author, journalist, host of Deep Focus, and co host of Deprogram, former intelligence officer, and brand ambassador for an Iceland-based ethical software development house called Talk Liberation. Our producer and engineer is Jayme CheeseSlice. The opinions you hear are ours and that of our guest, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as professional or legal advice. Listeners are encouraged to form their own opinions. Today's show is on social media platforms. Social media platforms don't just shape what we see, they also shape what we never see. Companies like Facebook, X, and YouTube rely on invisible tools to control reach, like shadow banning, throttling, and algorithmic suppression. Shadow banning quietly makes a post or account invisible to others without telling the user. Throttling cuts back distribution so a message reaches only a fraction of its normal audience. Add in algorithmic steering, where the entire topics are downranked, and you have a system where speech is technically allowed, but its visibility is strangled. These techniques create the illusion of free expression while delivering engineered scarcity of attention. The user thinks they're publishing to the world, but the platform decides who, if any, gets to hear them. This manipulation serves multiple agendas. The outcome is predictable. Independent journalism, grassroots activism, and dissenting voices disappear from the public square without any official ban. That's where alternative and ethical new social media models like Panquake and Talk Liberation come in. Unlike ad driven platforms, Panquake is designed around transparent distribution. Posts aren't just filtered through a black box algorithm, they move through a peer to peer system where the reach is determined by actual sharing, not by corporate throttling. Because decentralized, transparent platforms like Panquake offer a way to restore the promise of digital free speech, they threaten the status quo. Consequently, Talk Liberation, Panquake's tech startup company, has been under attack. In 2022, the Iceland based company's bank arbitrarily froze their accounts and seized 1 million in investor money that the accounts held. The bank invoked money laundering and anti terrorism financing laws as a justification before changing its mind and releasing the money 9 months later. While it effectively admitted that it was wrong for freezing the account, it offered no explanation, apology, or compensation for the costs and damages inflicted upon the company. In a world where visibility is power, the question isn't just who speaks, it's who gets heard. John, as Talk Liberation's brand ambassador, please tell us how and why you got involved with this Iceland based company, and what can we expect at their next hearing date on September 2nd, where they seek to get bank employees to testify under oath. Thank you.
Right. Well, thanks for having me, Gloria. Good to see you again, and good to see Jayme. I got involved with Panquake about 5.5 years ago for a couple of reasons. First of all, I know the major players involved. We work together on.
Sorry, John. Can we do a mic check on you? I think you're using your computer mic and not your good mic.
I haven't touched it. Let's see. Switched. There we go.
There you go. That's great. Sounds fantastic.
So I got involved with Panquake about 5.5 years ago because I knew Susie Dawson, the founder of Talk Liberation, and I know most of the players involved because we were all involved in one way or the other around support for Julian Assange. More importantly than that, though, I mean, it's one thing to like and to respect the people that you work with. I loved the idea behind the company. The idea was to protect computer users. It was to protect user privacy, user data, to ensure digital security. It all comes down to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of association. And we don't want to be manipulated by these big social media corporations or by governments. And so they were developing a suite of apps and software systems that were going to be allowing or enabling users to protect themselves and their data. And that's why I got involved. Now, we are going back to court in Iceland on September the 2nd. I want to preface this by saying that I am not an attorney, although Panquake has hired fantastic attorneys, the same attorneys that WikiLeaks had in Iceland. And I've gone to a couple of the hearings so far. The Icelandic legal system is unlike the American system. It's unlike any system that I've been involved with, but it makes discovery a little bit hard. So far, the court has decided that Panquake has a strong case, that Panquake is owed answers to the questions that it has. We're going to have this story finally laid out before us. And at this next hearing on September 2nd, we're optimistic that the bank is going to have to produce witnesses that Panquake has sought to question. So knock on wood, so far so good. It's all about transparency.
I think Jeremy's muted and he has a question there. He's muted again.
How will Panquake work? How will it draw people away from those big? Can you just spell that out? Draw them away from the big tech and the censorship.
Yeah, well, it's starting out with something called Panquake.me. You can check it out at pnqk.me. It's a shortening service, a link shortener. So if with the use of this link shortener, you aren't going to be tracked by big tech as you move from one website to another. If you want to read an article, you can read it, not have yourself tracked. If you want to forward it to somebody, it's not going to be tracked. It's a certain degree of privacy that you just can't get when you're using regular big tech. Now, as I said, there are several different parts of Panquake. The Panquake.me link shortener is just one aspect. The other one is more of what I would call, excuse me, a full-blown social media platform. When everybody first got together and started talking about what kind of product, what kind of service they wanted to provide, we started off with Panquake, right? The overall social media platform. The best thing about Panquake is that it is not powered by an algorithm. And so I'll give you an example, actually, a personal example. At the beginning of this year, I was giving a series of speeches around the United Kingdom. And we were selling out tickets weeks in advance. Things were going gangbusters. And then for my third tranche of 5 speeches, we had 57,000 clicks on the purchase tickets button, and we sold 7 tickets out of 57,000. So we went deep to see what the heck was going on. Was this a directed denial of service campaign? What was going on? Was it the CIA? Was it MI6? It turned out to be the Meta algorithm, because the algorithm just decided it didn't like me anymore. And so when people were sharing news of my speeches on Instagram and on Facebook and elsewhere, they were just going into the ether. Mm-hmm. That won't happen at Panquake. Mm-hmm. There is no algorithm. There is no overall power, behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, saying, we like that idea or we don't like this idea, so we're going to promote this one and we're going to squelch the other one. It just doesn't exist. It's going to be a way for you to engage with the people you want to engage with and who want to engage with you without being encumbered by big tech. If you want to share an article, then God bless, share an article. It's not going to be squelched. Mm-hmm. And, it seems to me, Jeremy, and I think you guys would agree with me. It seems to me like this is such a basic start to social media. The shame is that everybody's not doing it.
Mm-hmm. And, as far as like search engine, I've noticed that as a researcher, I'll be researching topics, put in some code words in Google, and increasingly, I think it used to be I would get a wide range of sources, but now they're really steering me to just the State Department. And since I do foreign policy topics, always the State Department is coming up, and just like the organ of the State Department, and I'm not getting these alternative media as much, and it's harder to find as a researcher information from more
Yeah.
independent source. So how would
Yeah.
Panquake help out researchers like myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I've run into as well. Like you, Jeremy, I do it a lot of research. And sometimes I need to see press TV, let's say, from Iran, or Al Mayadeen from Lebanon, or I need to see a paper from Venezuela or something. Not only is it hard, in some cases, like with press TV now, it's impossible. It's just impossible. Well, with Panquake, you'll be able to search for anything you want to search for. You'll be able to share anything that you want to share, which to me is even more, or it's as important. And there's not going to be some, like I said, some algorithm wagging its finger at you saying, no, you can't do that. Let me tell you another thing real quickly. I have a friend who was appointed to a position at the White House. And he is the senior director for South Asia at the National Security Council. So on his very first day at the White House, he got to his office, little tiny office, and he logged on with his new password, and he went to a half a dozen Pakistani and Afghan newspapers, and he saved the URLs. Okay? 30 minutes later.
John is muted. John is still back. I think we have a technical issue there.
Hold on.
There we go.
there
We
you
got him back. We got him back.
I don't know why this. There, that. Okay, so 30 minutes later, he gets a knock on the door, and it's the Secret Service. And they said that they had received word that he was going to what they call dangerous news sites. Now, this guy is supposed to be in charge of coordinating U.S. foreign policy for South Asia. And he's being told that he is not permitted to read South Asian newspapers on a government computer. So it's not Twitter this time, or X. It's not Facebook or Meta or Alphabet. It's the U.S. government saying you can't read these newspapers. This is the beauty of Panquake, is there's not going to be anybody to tell you what you can and can't read. And there's not going to be any algorithm to push you away from something that you want to read or that you want to communicate to somebody else.
So people just subscribe to Panquake, and that can replace other search engines.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's $5 a month right now. It's still in beta in some aspects, but well, actually, you know what? Let me give you a little bit of background. There have been 62 updates since 2021 on the fundraising page, explaining to people how things are getting better and better and better. It's on a test net. We've all seen it and used it. It's developing quickly. And then sort of on a parallel track is panquake.me, the link shortener. And at the same time, you know, as the last few years have passed and we got to thinking about what else needs to be created and needs to be implemented, Talk Liberation, which is the overall company, has begun developing additional software programs, additional service lines, products, and again, all surrounding these issues of user protection, data privacy, freedom of speech.
Well, a lot of people aren't aware that the internet came out of the Department of Defense.
Sure did.
So, you know, a lot of this technology that we use has like a military application. And when our likes and dislikes are captured, you know, different groups get a very granular picture of who we are. And I guess you would say, John, you know, if you know your enemy very well, and unfortunately, it seems our government treats us all as enemies, which is really unfortunate, as opposed to citizens and taxpayers and the people that they're there to serve. I guess they serve a different audience really than us. But it's really unfortunate that it's this way. And so the benefit that we can use these things is really the side benefit. And I mean, could you talk about like this kind of weaponization a little bit, about how fantastic it is if you do get this kind of granular picture of targets and likes and dislikes, and how it makes it more easy to manipulate, or maybe even do color revolutions and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit of that.
That's such an important issue, and it is potentially so dangerous and so easily manipulated. We've all heard the stories about the nascent, I'm not even going to call it an uprising, but demonstrations in Iran back in 2009. And as it turned out, Twitter at the time was going to they were going to take Twitter down for an hour to do some sort of hardware update or software update or whatever it was. Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State at the time, called Twitter and asked them to hold off on it and to keep Twitter going, because Iranians were communicating by Twitter. And she was hopeful that if Twitter didn't go down, it would help to overthrow the Iranian government, with people being able to coordinate demonstrations and actions in the streets. The same thing was said of Libya. But this is manipulation on the part of the US government. What about if the US government is targeting a certain user? If they have the complete picture, not just of what you say and what you post, but the sites that you visit, this can be dangerous. What about if, let's say, you Google an abortion clinic? Now, you haven't told anybody that you need an abortion or that you want an abortion. You just Google the abortion clinic. Well, that metadata can be used against you. It can be used to impugn you or to influence you in some way. What if you're calling a psychiatrist or a drug treatment facility? What if you're calling a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you want to keep private? All of these little bits of data can be used against you, and have been used against people by the likes of the FBI, the CIA, NSA, and others. I remember early on, don't laugh at me, but I'm a big fan of Law and Order, the procedural on TV, Law and Order.
I used to love that show.
It's a good
Love
show.
the show. I watched 3 episodes yesterday, as a matter of fact, but this is why I'm reminded of it. Yesterday, there was an episode that ran from the mid 1990s, and Jack McCoy, who's the star, attorney of the show, he doesn't really understand this whole internet thing. So his deputy said that she had done some research on him the night before. And she said, you like to order Chinese food from this place down the street, and you like to listen to jazz, but you also have an unhealthy obsession with The Clash. And he said, you could tell all of that from just searching on the internet? And she said, yeah, and it's going to get a lot worse.
Oh.
Okay, that was 30 years ago.
Wow.
30 years ago. Now imagine what our government and big tech can tell about us just because we happen to sit at our computers all day. Listen, this chair that I'm sitting in right now, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you I probably sit in this chair online 12 hours a day. And that's why we have to use services like Panquake.me, like Panquake, and even things, outside the Panquake suite, like Signal, for example. Not to say that John's endorsing Signal because it doesn't have a backdoor. It probably does have a backdoor. But I'm just saying, we've got to do everything we can to ensure our own privacy. And that's what Panquake and Talk Liberation are doing.
A lot of people will say, well, I don't have anything private, so I don't need that protection. And one of the things, when I had written an article looking at the origins of Google and the origins of Facebook and the internet and all of that stuff, one of the things that I had come up with is that is that these systems, I'm going to lose my train of thought. Oh God, that these systems can also influence how we think. That they have this social contagion aspect. And what they found, the psychiatrists and psychologists that are involved in this have found that people are more excitable when they're angry. And concepts that are negative get more attention and more hits. So there's this, and I think news media has found that out also. If they have a terrible headline about some abusive thing, more people are going to open it and look at it. So what they found, and this is really interesting, in the social contagion study that was done, and I think it was done by DARPA and DoD, really, really deep studies, in addition to Facebook, was that you can influence the mood of people. Now, usually before like social media, if you visited your friend and your friend was depressed and anxious, and you're sitting with your good friend, you kind of pick up that mood that they're in. You pick it up. And so that's a real human interaction. And what they're finding is that you can pick up a mood from social media. So people are actually being influenced to be maybe more depressed or more anxious about topics, maybe to be more isolated from their loved ones, family members, significant others. There's all of this stuff that tends to isolate us, and when we're isolated, we tend to become more easily manipulated. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Jeremy, go ahead.
Well, I
Sorry about
just
that.
want to make a quick point, and then to go to you, John. I would just add to Gloria. I think they use, because I mean, Facebook was set up by the CIA, and I think they deliberately, they're playing the game of divide and conquer. So they deliberately, push inflammatory messages, or group people based on their interest, based on their political affiliation, and put out their incendiary political material to stir up conflict and to stir up partisan division. So I think they're using social media in different ways, like what you're describing, Gloria, and also in this way. And that's part and parcel of what, John, you were saying at the beginning, how, and Gloria, the deep state set up. I mean, they're the ones who developed the internet, developed social media for their own agendas, and we've got to reclaim it for public interest. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, a couple of points there, Jeremy. I was not aware that the CIA was there at the founding of Facebook, but one of the things that we've learned subsequently that I think is extraordinarily dangerous, and it seemed to be like a 1 or 2 day story, was when Matt Taibbi broke the news that there were active duty CIA, FBI, and NSA officers sitting in the headquarters of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all the other social media platforms. Why? To censor us? To guide conversations? To make the final decision as to what Americans are or are not allowed to read or to talk about? I mean, it seems to me that would be illegal on a whole bunch of different levels. And it was in the news for a day, and people said, oh well, what are you going to do? But again, you've got this organization, Panquake. One of the reasons why it's based in Iceland, one of the many reasons why it's based in Iceland, is so that it's not subject to that kind of onerous and heavy-handed censorship and governmental and big tech guidance. As Americans, not even speaking internationally, but just as Americans, when are we going to stand up and say no? Stand up and say that's enough. That it's not. I'm not going to buckle under the pressure from the government to determine what I get to talk about. I gave an interview yesterday to a Swedish news outlet, and we were talking about the left versus the right in news and in sort of the public discourse. And I said, see, that's one of the jokes about the United States, is that we have a left. There is no left in the United States. I said, we have a right of center party, and then we have a farther right of center party. And now we've got the world's richest man trying to make another third right of center party that's in the middle of the two right of center parties. Well, with Panquake, you don't have to worry about being pushed to the right of the center or farther to the right of the center. It's just not going to happen.
Well, one of the things that Jeremy and I talk a lot about is this division between the truther groups, which are the kind of on the right, and then there's the anti-imperialist group that's kind of on the left. And they both are focused on crimes that the government does in our name with our tax dollars. But yet they're not united because there's all of these social issues that kind of keep them in their own, siloed in their own camps. But the other thing I just wanted to speak to, which is a point of clarification, is I'm also not aware that the CIA not controlled, but actually was involved in the founding of Facebook. But there's only one degree of separation. So, you can read into it whatever you want. And that's Peter Thiel. Okay. Peter Thiel was the original, not founder, but financer of Facebook. And he's Palantir, and Palantir is extremely close. And he is extremely close to In-Q-Tel, and In-Q-Tel is the venture capitalist arm of the CIA. So
we should talk about that, actually.
So the CIA might not have actually created Facebook, but they were damn close.
I'm not an expert, but there have been some articles that I've seen that suggest a very strong, and I'm not that sharp on this topic, so I could be off, but my intuition is that, and it's not like some other topics I've studied where I really know fully, but my intuition is that they were quite central, that they had connection with Zuckerberg, that some of the people on the original board were connected with maybe not just the CIA, but other intelligence agencies, and that there were various purposes behind it. And a key one was that it got people to reveal aspects of their personal life out in the open. That stuff that was hard for police, law enforcement, or intelligence agencies to uncover aspects of people's private life. Now they put that right out in the open. So that was one key reason they helped conceive of the idea. And it may be that more research is needed to confirm the exact role they may have played, but my intuition is that they played a very strong role, and that I think there is some evidence of that. If you look into the background of the people who were involved that formed the phase, and I think it was for that purpose, and I think they found this new purpose of divide and conquer, to push like incendiary political stuff on either side, because they're trying to divide. Like Gloria, you're saying, I think the trick of the ruling oligarchy is to divide people. What they don't want people is to come together along class line, middle, working class, develop a movement against the oligarchy and all the corruption we see. They want to pit Americans against each other, their own partisan lines, or, sometimes maybe cultural issues. So, in your Facebook feed, if you've gone to certain websites or you've posted certain article, they're going to pump you with all this stuff. If it's more left-wing stuff, they'll pump you with that to hate the right. And if you're a MAGA or you've had some association with the Trump, they'll put all this incendiary stuff that, you have to hate the liberals and hate the leftists. So I think that's a secondary purpose they found for it. But it gets at the broader point that, we've got to reclaim social media for ourselves, and that big tech and the CIA originally, I think when the internet was founded, people felt, oh, this is going to be a great democratizing instrument. It's going to allow for free speech, for a newspaper that, articles you couldn't get published. Now we can set up web magazines. There'll be no barriers. You can write long essays. But, they found a way to control it. And as we've discussed, another aspect is controlling alternative media, putting infiltrators in the alternative media outlets that used to be totally independent, kind of classic, but now you read those outlets and you find stuff mixed in that supports these color revolutions, and then they fund all kinds of online outlets, designed to provoke color revolution in other countries, and then push that on people's social media. So I think it's vital to the ruling class strategy at this time. So I think it's great what John, what you're involved with, and I think it's key to liberating us as a society.
Thank you, Jeremy.
John's
And
always on the cutting edge too, John.
I try to be. I'm trying to act younger than I am, is what it is. I wanted to mention too, advertising. So, Panquake is a subscription service. There is no outside advertising. And I'll tell you why this is especially important to me too. I was on the phone recently with a friend of mine, old friend of mine, and I mentioned that I am sometimes a magnet for crazy people, right? Everybody who thinks that, the space aliens are at the CIA and they're beaming waves at people's heads and stealing their thoughts, they email me constantly, right? And he said, do you ever feel under threat? And I responded that over the course of the last 20 years, I've had 3 legitimate threats against my life, to the point where the cops had to get involved. And in 2 of the cases, these 2 women were arrested. And they've just made up, in their minds, they made up this thing that there's this conspiracy against them, and I'm somehow at the crux of the conspiracy. I'm telling you, the moment that I hung up my phone, I went onto Facebook, and literally every single ad was for a concealed carry class being offered in my area. I never said anything about any concealed carry class, but it was listening to my phone call. Facebook was listening to my phone call. That's not an anomaly. This kind of thing happens all the time, where, for example, my sister called me once and we were talking about our father. He had arthritis in his hands, right? And she said, oh, I found this thing. It melts wax and you stick your hand in it and you pull your hand out and the wax is really hot and it, soothes the pain. Next thing I know, every single advertisement is for something having to do with arthritis. So big tech is constantly listening to us. For people who have an Alexa in their home, for example, it has to constantly listen to you because it has to be hearing for its name to be called, right? So you can tell it what to do. Well, at Amazon, they tell us, sure, they have teams of people who just sit there with headphones all day and all night listening to see how to improve the responsiveness of the machine. Well, they're also listening to people have sex. They're listening to people on the phone with their doctors. They're listening to people having arguments. They have access to our most closely held secrets. Now, couple that with what you just said, Gloria, where you've got Peter Thiel involved at the ground floor of these companies. You've got In-Q-Tel and the CIA's venture capital arm involved at the beginning, and then all of a sudden they're turning into multi-billion-dollar businesses. Listen, CIA was the very first investor in Palantir, the very first. $1.5 million that they upped to 15 million a year or 2 later. It is now a $1 billion a year in revenue company, partially owned by the CIA. What about
they're kingmakers. They really are. In-Q-Tel is a kingmaker. I mean,
without any question.
People used to think
they have investment in Facebook too. I'd have to look that up, but
people used to think that, you had to do these black ops.
Yeah.
And you do. You still do the black ops. You still do the human trafficking, the weapon trafficking, the drug trafficking. You still do that. But you make a hell of a lot of money. You make a hell of a lot of money with In-Q-Tel.
Yes.
And Silicon
Yes,
Valley. And man,
yeah, if they're on your side, you're set.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard. I mean, yeah, John, maybe you can say more about the attacks and barriers you face, because if you're going against them, they're going to make your life very hellish, as you well know. So
yeah, they're going to try to ruin you. In fact, let me draw that parallel, Jeremy. Thanks for raising it in that fashion. Let me draw the parallel. So here you've got this company in Iceland, Panquake, bunch of smart people, bunch of dedicated people spread out all over the world. We're talking about dozens and dozens of incredibly bright people, programmers, right? And coders and I mean, people just involved in every aspect of the company, spread out in dozens of countries. And then all of a sudden, the bank accounts are frozen. Why? Out of thin air, the bank accounts are frozen. No explanation, no justification, no nothing. I mean, we can only assume that, that Iceland's bank, or Iceland Banky, whatever they call themselves in Icelandic, that the CEO didn't just wake up one morning and say, you know what, there's this little company, Panquake, I think I'm going to freeze their accounts today. Come on, that's not real life. They had to have been asked to do it. But when you've got nothing to support the decision, you have to take the decision back. And 9 months after the accounts were frozen, they were unfrozen. But without an apology, without an explanation, without anything monetarily to try to make it right, well, I think that Panquake is owed that explanation and probably more. And I think that I know that what this case is about is getting to the bottom of these questions. Maybe in the United States, big companies can push around the little guy. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And that's certainly not the way it's supposed to be in Iceland. I'll give you another personal example. I blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program in December of 2007. In January of 2012, I was arrested, charged with 5 felonies, 3 counts of espionage. I pleaded not guilty to everything. But even before I could get out of the courtroom, Bank of America closed my account and sent me a check for the amount of money that I had in the account. They said they didn't want to do business with criminals. USAA canceled my homeowner's insurance, my life insurance, and my auto insurance. Why? They don't want to do business with criminals. And it was like dominoes, where every company that I had business with, one after the other, just threw me out.
And John, I just want to underscore that.
Or when you were arrested?
Say that again, Jeremy?
That was before your conviction?
It was almost a full year before my conviction.
Yep. The other thing I just want to point out is John, you're a family man.
Yeah, so I have 5 kids. Yeah.
So it's not just when somebody targets an individual, okay, like this.
It's the whole
they're
family,
not just targeting
Gloria.
the individual, but they're targeting all of these other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really it's terrible. It's absolutely
what happens
terrible.
to the victim innocent before proven guilty?
I know, right?
I wouldn't agree in general if they did it, but even worse, they did it before your conviction.
And I'll tell you, to make it worse, Jeremy, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little too far down in the weeds on this, but the next day, I walked into, it's called United Bank. They have them here in the DC area. And I only went to United Bank because it happened to be the closest one to my house. So I walked in, I said, hi, I'm John Kiriakou. I want to open a checking account. Sure, we're happy to help you with that. Do you have a form of ID? Of course. I give her my ID. She's typing something on the computer. She stops, she looks, and she says, I'm sorry, we don't want to do business with you. It's like, what the heck does that mean? You don't want to do, I haven't been convicted of any crime. You don't want to do business with me. Maybe I don't want to do business with you. Well, I'm at the point now, I don't want to do business with X and with Facebook and with all of these others. It's just too much. It's one thing to, stay in touch with your buddies from high school or your relatives. It's another thing to just concede your freedom and your personal information and data. That's a bridge too far.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, in the origins of Facebook, there was another system that was being used, and I forgot the name of it. I'd written an article about this in 2018 when I was in the middle of a color revolution involving Nicaragua.
Was it MySpace?
No. It was the Total Awareness Project, something like that. And it was just a government program. And it was basically the same thing as Facebook. It was collecting information about people and putting it in one spot. And
like MySpace.
No, I'll have to look up the name of it. But it wasn't those. It was one that wasn't flattering. It was just a data dump. And Congress and the Senate said, this is terrible. This is Orwellian. We don't want something like this. So within a year, Facebook was created. And what made Facebook different from this is it was voluntary.
Yeah.
They did a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't give all your information to Facebook, then you wouldn't get laid, or you wouldn't have friends, or you wouldn't, get a job, or whatever it is. So it encouraged people to do it. So people did it voluntarily. They gave away the most precious thing they have, which is their autonomy and their privacy. They just gave it away for free. So Facebook took over where this other software failed, just because of the marketing angle.
And Gloria, and you're exactly right. And another thing too, is that, there's this hoax that's been going around Facebook for years saying, it's official now. I saw it on Channel 9, effective tomorrow. Facebook has access to your photos. So cut and paste this paragraph that says, you can't have access to your photos. It's a hoax because it's just made up. But the truth of the matter is, when you established your Facebook account or your Twitter account or Instagram account or anything else as part of the terms and conditions, you gave them access to everything you have. You voluntarily turned it over to them for free, for them to use as they please. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's too late now. And another thing too, Gloria, is we can't underestimate the effect that 9/11 had on the national psyche, where you're right. There used to be a decent number of members of Congress who were willing to stand up for our civil rights and civil liberties. And that went away with passage of the Patriot Act, right? Talk about a lack of privacy. We have nothing that remains private, nothing. And, you alluded to a few minutes ago to a question that people generally have, that if I have nothing to hide, then what do I care if they're taking my data? I always come back to this as a response. The very first person to pose that question in a public venue was Joseph Goebbels in 1935. When people began to object to the Nazi Party collecting information in neighborhoods. And Goebbels said, well, if you have nothing to hide, then what do you care if we're collecting information on you? Well, we should all care, and we should all be afraid. It should be a given that the platforms we're using are not collecting on us, rather than just assume that they are and just give away our innermost secrets.
I found it. It was called the Information Awareness Office.
Yeesh.
Oh,
And
that
it
was John Poindexter?
I'm not quite sure, but it was defunded in 2003. It came out of DARPA and DOD, of course.
And that was the Iran-Contra guy, John Poindexter, was involved. I once did some research on that as well. And it was to compile databases on terrorism, but it entailed total surveillance. It was moving in the direction of what John was describing, and I think Edward Snowden may have commented on that.
But it was only around for about a year because people thought it was creepy. It was too Orwellian. But then Facebook comes around with a beautiful box, and everyone just was like, "All right, let's take off all our clothes."
And then just sort of as an adjunct to this, you've got NSA, which built a new facility in the Utah desert that has so much computer memory available to it. It can hold every phone call, every text message, every voicemail, and every email that every American makes for the next 500 years. And besides the fact that it's actually illegal and it's a violation of NSA's charter to even collect that information, that's pretty much 80% of what they do. But besides all that, law enforcement doesn't need a warrant to access the information. So rather than going to a judge and saying, hey, listen, we think so-and-so's involved in a crime, can we have a warrant for his data? They just call up NSA and say, hey, can you give us the data? And as NSA says, sure. NSA is not a court. They just turn it over. Or the FBI, for example, will write what's called a national security letter. It's not a warrant or a subpoena. It's a letter saying, hey, we're FBI, and this letter is to Apple, and we want you to give us all the data you have on John Kiriakou. I know that because they did that to me. There was no warrant. There was no subpoena. There was a threatening letter from the FBI to Apple, and Apple said, here, take it all. And the next thing I know, I'm under arrest and being charged with, 3 death penalty offenses.
Yeah, and that's, John, that's a good example. Your case is a precise reason, because you were actually doing your constitutional and ethical duty
It was.
in reporting on crimes by torture by the CIA, and yet they're using all this personal information against you, who's actually doing a duty as a citizen. And that kind of underscores your point about the danger, and to refute anyone who says, oh, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, yeah, exactly. They may be doing the right thing, and then they'll use it against you.
They will.
Challenging what is increasingly a fascistic authority. I mean, they're carrying out, criminal acts. And, and John, you're involved with whistleblowers. They're the ones who are being retaliated against, imprisoned.
And the one thing I would be remiss in not pointing out is our dear guest, John Kiriakou, exposed people torturing prisoners. Okay. And he was sent away to prison, but the torturers, nothing, nada, not a thing.
And Bank of America is telling him we don't want to do business. Is terrible. I mean,
terrible.
Because
but Bank of America was happy to take the $6 million book advances for the other guys.
That's real criminality. Torture is in violation of the Geneva Convention and every known law.
And I think John pointed out many times it's ineffective. It's not like the torture results in protecting the United States. Just give us a sentence on that. It's very important that John says that.
Any society that tolerates torture has gone, way past the moral abyss, toward the level of Nazi Germany. So
that's absolutely right. But Gloria's right,
saying it's not effective.
It's not effective. And study after study after study, going back more than a century, has shown that the person being tortured will tell you literally anything that he thinks you want to know just to get him to stop torturing you. Right? I mean, John McCain used to say when he was being tortured, and they would say, who's your commanding officer? He would just name people from the starting offensive line of the Los Angeles Rams. They're just names. And finally, they would stop torturing him. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was the alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, was tortured so mercilessly, waterboarded 187 times, had unspeakable crimes committed against him. He confessed to killing the Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl. Well, I was in Pakistan when Daniel Pearl was killed. I saw Daniel Pearl the day he was killed. He came into the embassy. He said, I'm going to go do this meeting, and I wanted to check in. There was an FBI agent and I there, and we said, this is a really bad idea. Your safety is in danger. You shouldn't do the meeting. He said, no, I've been working on this interview for 6 months. I trust the guy. He goes to the meeting. He's beheaded. They find his head in a lot on one side of town. They find his body buried on the other side of town. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was not in Pakistan when that happened. But the CIA tortured him so mercilessly that he confessed to killing Daniel Pearl just to get them to stop. So then what do? You've already arrested a guy and charged him with killing Daniel Pearl. Now you have another guy that's confessing to having killed Daniel Pearl. What do?
And also, they've been unable, from my following of some of the cases, they can't secure conviction because they've tortured them so badly that they're compromised as witnesses in their own trial, and all the evidence in the trial has become tainted. And so you can't ever achieve justice. And a lot of the 9/11 families are now angry that they've not. I read the New York Times every day, and there was an article a day or two ago that the 9/11 families are just, it was spotlighting them that they've never achieved justice for their family. So what did the torture achieve? It's compromised the very legal cases.
Yeah.
It's led us into the absolute moral abyss. I mean, and there was an excellent film by Felipe Diaz,
Yes.
I recommend, called I Am Gitmo. And actually, I didn't know that like 90% of the people at Guantanamo Bay were totally innocent. It was like a
Maybe
loan shark
more than
operation.
90%.
Yeah.
You know what happened back then was the U.S. Army and the CIA in Afghanistan put out rewards, right? They dropped flyers over villages and cities and towns. If you know where Al Qaeda is, call this number. And so people were calling these numbers, but they weren't ratting out Al Qaeda fighters. What they were doing is, Jeremy, let's say I borrow $500 from you. That's like a year's wages in rural Afghanistan. I borrow $500 from you. I don't want to pay you back. So I call the CIA and I say, hey, there's this guy, Jayme Kuzmarov. I think he's Al Qaeda. They grab you. They put you on a C-12. They send you to Guantanamo, and you are there for the next 15 years. And you've not done anything.
Yeah.
But it's going to take them 15 years to figure out that you're just some guy from some village, and money was owed to you, and the guy didn't want to pay it back. So yeah, at least 90% of the people that were incarcerated in Guantanamo were innocent of any crime. But even the people that we identified as senior Al Qaeda leaders were not guilty of a crime. Just look at Abu Zubaydah, right? I mean, the capture of Abu Zubaydah was the single most important, most impactful event of my life. And the man was innocent. And he's still in Guantanamo. We took him to a series of 6 different secret prisons all around the world, finally sent him to Guantanamo in 2005, tortured him at every single step of the way. We even removed his eyeball. We didn't even tell him we were going to do it. We just put him under, and when he woke up, he's missing an eyeball and has a patch over his eye. And he's never been charged with a crime, and he'll never be released. In the Senate torture report, or in the heavily redacted summary of the Senate torture report that was released back in December of 2014, there's a footnote, which is where you get the real story, in the footnotes. But there's a footnote that says that Abu Zubaydah shall never be released. And when he dies at Guantanamo, he is to be cremated and his ashes thrown into the Caribbean. And that's it. That's justice.
Gosh. Unbelievable. Imagine what it's like to be him, tortured for years, no hope in life.
I'm in touch with his attorneys, and we've exchanged a couple of friendly messages, Abu Zubaydah and I. And his attorney told me recently that the day that I went public with the torture program in December of 2007, a friendly guard at Guantanamo went into Abu Zubaydah's cell and said, a CIA man went public today over what happened to you. And that Abu Zubaydah said for the very first time, the prisoners there felt hope. And I said, the government is never going to apologize for what has happened to him. So I want to apologize. I said, I'm ashamed at what our government did to Abu Zubaydah in the name of counterterrorism and security. And I'm sorry. And Abu Zubaydah sent a message back saying that he hoped that someday we could have dinner together as 2 free men. Because, as it was, neither one of us belonged in prison. And we both went to prison.
Wow.
Terrible.
Yeah, that is terrible. Well, and I would tout that film because Felipe Diaz, that was the first film he kind of tried to present the film from the point of view of somebody who experienced the torture and what it was like. And even the coffin, they put him in an underground coffin as a form of torture for who knows how many hours to simulate his death. And he actually showed that in the movie. So you can.
They actually kept him in that coffin for 2 weeks. They would open it only to change his diaper and throw food in there.
Jeez.
Mm.
And that reminded me of the tiger cages, because I studied the Vietnam War, and I was recently reviewing a book by James Bradley, who lived in Vietnam for a long time, and he recently visited the Con Son, and that's what they did there. That was basically an underground coffin. They would like throw feces on them, throw them like moldy bread to eat, and a lot of them got diseases and died within 6 months of that. It was horrendous.
Well, that's also the concept that, I keep bringing up on our show called lethal selection, where, certain things are withheld from you so you get diseases and die. They don't necessarily put a bullet in your head. They just give you unclean water, unclean food.
Well, Gloria, may I interrupt you for 1 second?
No.
There's a prisoner at Guantanamo who has a degenerative spinal condition. And so the Defense Department doctors said, look, the guy has to have spinal surgery. Okay? It's the only thing that can help him. He's got to have spinal surgery. Well, Congress, in its infinite wisdom, in 2010 passed a law that the great President Barack Obama signed into law, making it illegal to bring any Guantanamo prisoner onto the shores of the United States. Okay, so at first the idea was, let's send him to Miami. He can have his spinal surgery and then back to Guantanamo. Nope, can't do it. It's against the law. So they decided to move this specialized piece of equipment from Miami to Guantanamo to do the operation. When the equipment arrived, it was broken, and now the prisoner is permanently paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow. I had written a couple of articles on the U.S. prison system, and I'm sure, you could talk about that better than I can, on how medical treatment is withheld from our own prisoners on our own soil.
Mm-hmm. You can say that again.
And I've done some, well, we're going to have to wrap it up, but yeah, I've done some investigation in Oklahoma, because I do investigative journalism as a side job on the criminal justice. And there have been some horrific abuses in Oklahoma prisons in recent years, including leaving an inmate out in like 110-degree heat. Like they had deprived him exercise for a month, and he was like, complaining. So they left him out in the heat. He's like, exercise all you want. They forced him to sleep out there for like 4 days, and he was near death. And anyway, there are incidents like that. So it's going on, on our soil.
You're absolutely right. Every day. It happens every day in American prisons and jails. Every day.
Well, we're at the wrap it up section, and I'd just like to give John an opportunity and our audience an opportunity to learn how we all can follow your important work, John.
Oh, thank you very much.
I know you have some podcasts. You've written a whole bunch of books. You've written a lot of books.
Yeah, I've written a lot of books. My 8th is supposed to be coming out soon. I hope to get that date today, as a matter of fact. I've got 2 podcasts on YouTube and Rumble. One is called Deprogram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. The other is called Deep Focus with John Kiriakou. I've got my column in Covert Action Magazine. I write occasionally for Consortium News. And check out Panquake. I mean, that's really what this is all about. The government and big tech are not going to hand us privacy platforms. We've got to do it ourselves. So here we go.
Well, one question, I'm not sure if you know the answer. Panquake is quite an unusual name. Like when I hear the word quake, I think of earthquake. So I'm thinking that maybe it's something that disrupts, the status quo.
That's the idea.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about the name just for a second?
Yeah, I actually like the name. I thought it was creative. And the reason why the word quake is in there is because you're going to be able to write something, to post something that you can amplify the readership of, and that's called a quake. You can write a quake. And pan, as in, I'm going to take credit for this culturally. Pan being a Greek word meaning across. So it's like an across the world ability to get your ideas out there.
All right. Okay. Well, That wraps up our show for today. But before we do that, I have to also mention that the opinions you hear are ours and that of our guest, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. That wraps up our show for today. This is Uncontrolled Opposition. I'm Gloria Guillo, joined here by Professor Jayme Kuzmarov. Remember to like and share our broadcast. Your kind support keeps us going. Please find us on Substack, Twitter, X, and Podbeam. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week. Now, before anyone says anything, we are still live. We're still live.
Okay. I'm going to have to run in 2 minutes, but thanks, John. That was a really great discussion.
Thank you, Jayme. Good to see you. Good to see you, Gloria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jayme, good to see you.
Good to see you again, John. Yeah.
I've got to run, so I'll see you guys soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Jayme.
All right.
So you kept mentioning the program that the government had before Facebook, and we all thought MySpace.
Oh yeah, we did.
No.
but it's kind of funny though, because the government got behind Facebook, and then they eventually pushed MySpace out.
Yeah, they did.
MySpace was dominating in the early 2000s in the social media space, but part of it was just Facebook was a better product, and that's why.
Well, no, I don't believe it was a better product, but it was certainly.
That's why I switched.
Yeah, it became a more popular product because it was pushed. And that's what, when John and I are talking about In-Q-Tel being kingmakers, it's they have magic dust, and they'll put that magic dust on something they want, and then they'll strangle something they don't. And I've seen that quite a bit. And the other country that I was kind of involved with that had one of these color revolutions or Twitter wars, was Egypt, and that was quite.
Yes.
Quite interesting. And I had interviewed a guy that participated in that. And he actually confessed to me that he didn't know why he was doing it, that he was getting these messages telling him to go to this place and that place. And he was going there with his friends to the places they said. And when they'd get there, there'd be news teams filming them. So they thought it was very curious. And their parents, they were young at the time, and their parents were saying, don't do this. This is a setup. Don't do this. But they were so inflamed that this social contagion aspect of this news coming at you from all directions with social media. And then they have these sock puppets. You know about the sock puppets. You get like a pimply faced, kid in the Navy or the Army who's sitting in a chair, and he's got like maybe, 1,000 accounts, and they're all AI. But then occasionally you have like a little bit of a human touch to kind of, give it something. So people are influenced by placement. If something's like on the first page of Google in the first couple of lines, or if something is on Facebook and there's 3 million likes, there's this feeling that you want to be part of this group. And, and that's like this manipulation. So the more they know about us, I think, John, you would talk about this, the more they know about us, the more they can manipulate us, because they know how to market an idea to us. So they may get us to vote for Trump, or they may get us to vote for Biden, or they may get us to buy a car we don't need, or change our gender because everyone's doing it. And we want to be we want to belong. We want to be part of a group. And this whole, how many likes mentality is extremely manipulative.
Yes, absolutely true.
Can I just interject real quick? Facebook is extremely easy to quit, by the way. I did it 4 years ago. It took me like less than 3 days, and I didn't have any withdrawal symptoms. I just kind of restructured my life without it. And I haven't missed it at all.
Wow.
It's so easy to quit. I mean, because you think, oh, it's got all my pictures. I mean, how am I going to, what am I going to do about that? Well, you can quit using the platform and leave, and you can basically lock your account down, but it's still there. So you can still go back and get your pictures if you need to. But I've only had to do that like twice in 4 years. So it's just very easy to quit. I highly recommend it to people. Just like make your account private, put up just a blank picture for your profile picture, I like the last thing I did on there was a statement saying, "Hey, I'm done with Facebook. I'm leaving. See you guys. You can find me on other platforms, whatever." It's so easy, and I highly recommend it to everybody to do it. Twitter's a little bit
Well
more
done.
difficult, but
Well
I mean, I
done.
don't like Twitter. I use it because I have to, but Facebook is super duper easy, and I really recommend it.
They
Yeah,
do. Go ahead,
I
John.
find Twitter to be more mean spirited. You know, people, there
Mhm.
just seems to be so much more anonymity at Twitter that people are willing to take cheap shots. And I just find it not
Yeah.
really conducive to a real conversation.
I every time I get on Twitter, I start to feel like I'm losing all hope in humanity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
but it's interesting. My Twitter account is it is not an echo chamber. Like I get a ton of
Good
like
stuff.
of stuff that I really don't like, and like over half my feed is stuff like that. And
Wow.
I've been
I don't know if they're doing that on purpose or that they've got me pegged as like being more right wing. I don't know. I
I'd
can't
like
figure
to
that out.
add to the list next door. I've been abused by next door.
Oh,
I
I've
have
heard about that. I've heard people do get abused by Nextdoor.
I have my backyard is on a canal and a lake in Florida, and they've this water control district is spraying glyphosate like
Oof.
it's going out of style, and it's not even effective. I mean, it doesn't kill the lily pads that are really the problem. Instead, it's killing the grass that's on the banks that's holding the canal from soil erosion and collapse. So it's not only a bad idea for humans and pets, and they don't even tell us when they spray. So you can have your kid out back playing with the dog. They get sprayed by the boat and nobody even knows. And, so anyway, I created a group called Safe Water South Florida, if anyone wants to check it out. And, I've been posting the meetings of the water control district to get people to go. And, at first, like the first time I posted, I got something like 3,000 hits on it. And I was like, oh, wow. People are looking at it. And then like the second time I did it, I got like 2,000 hits. Then the third time I did it, I think I get like 1 or 200 people now. I'm on the, next door poop list. I don't want to get it, banned. So I didn't, say the word I was thinking, but I mean, really.
Yeah,
So
and
it's everything. So I don't know if it's, I forgot the chemical company that has it now. It's used to be Monsanto. Now it's Bayer.
Right.
So I don't know if it's, Monsanto or Bayer saying something, or I don't know quite how it happens, but, certainly, I've been moderated on that. And Jayme can tell you, I think you also, of course, you work with Fiorella, Isabel, and Pasta, very, these guys. And Fiorella is also, I'm not sure if she's a brand ambassador, but she's very much involved in Panquake also, from what I
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
And
She's the spokesperson.
she's a spokesperson. And they've and Jayme could speak on that. They've been shadow banned, terribly demonetized.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
They just crush us.
yeah, the combo couch was like skyrocketing, and then they took their knees out right from underneath them. I mean, it's like, nope, you guys don't get to be a thing. You're
Yeah,
done.
I go on a lot of really big podcasts like Danny Jones. I've been on Danny Jones, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. He has millions of subscribers, but he told me that every time he puts my name in the title of the video, it's demonetized.
Wow.
So when he replaces my name with CIA officer or former CIA officer or whatever, whistleblower, whatever, no problem. It's monetized again.
Good tip.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Careful.
haven't made it to the point of monetization because we're completely shadow banned.
But we're still on
somehow
Pasta's channel.
but
we
somehow-
haven't started our own channel
but
yet.
sometimes people do find us nonetheless.
Yeah.
And what's nice is with the radio.
Yeah.
It's one of the few frontiers, and I really support. I'm also the vice chair at WBAI Radio in New York, and I really support public radio, and I hope that people in the New York area and those who tune in on the internet can hear the shows, also support WBAI radio, because you can't censor that. Okay, that signal goes out to everyone. It's kind of like the sun. If you're good or bad, the sun still shines on you. And whether your message is approved or disapproved, it's out there in the airwaves, and you can hear it. So we really want to keep, our radio stations, especially our public radio stations,
it's the forgotten
alive.
frontier.
Yeah, it
but
is.
It's still an important space. I miss Sputnik because I live in Washington, and God, I don't know what to listen to in my car anymore. Like, that was like the channel. I mean, I used to be a big WJFK or the sports network.
Yes.
I used to listen to them all the time, but I don't listen to sports anymore. I don't care. And
I miss both.
I found Sputnik, and I was listening to that. Now it's gone. I don't know what to do anymore.
Gone. I can't tell you how many times I would get into an Uber or a cab in DC and Sputnik was on.
Yeah, because they actually talk about real stuff.
Yeah,
it's not propaganda. And then they say, "Oh, it's Russian disinformation." No, it's Russians funding dissident voices.
That's right.
So I've got a good one for you. How about ChatGPT? I've caught it lying.
Oh, it lies about me.
It lies.
I got
it lies.
I said to ChatGPT early on, I said, "Who is John Kiriakou?" It says, "John Kiriakou is a former CIA officer, whistleblower, blah, 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 blah. He graduated from the University of Maryland and got a master's degree in peace studies from the University of Ghent in Belgium." And I said, "That is incorrect. John Kiriakou graduated from George Washington University with a degree in Middle Eastern Studies and remained at George Washington for a master's degree in legislative affairs." And it tells me, "No, you are incorrect." Yeah, it's University of Maryland and University of Ghent, Belgium. And then Ted Rawl, my podcast partner, ChatGPT tells him he doesn't exist. He's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize finalist. He doesn't even exist. There is no such person as Ted Rawl.
I asked ChatGPT at one point, "Why am I shadow banned?" And it told me. I kept it. I have it somewhere. It actually has the reasons. It says, "Oh, she talks about election integrity in developing countries. Oh my God." And so yeah, it really didn't like it. It doesn't like when you talk about election integrity.
Yeah.
That's another topic. Boom, you're out.
It doesn't like when you expose the empire for being an empire.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if you found this too, but we found that as long as you stay in, like let's say we're Republicans and we're going to take a complete Republican stand, you're not really shadow banned. Or if you take a complete Democrat stand, you're not really shadow banned. But if you're just looking across the board and you're saying, they got this right, they got this wrong, and you're just looking at the policies themselves and the opinions themselves, that's when you're in trouble. When you go outside, I don't know if you've experienced that too, because I think you've been on more, let's say, to the right shows than, maybe you would have been on 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Like your interview with Tucker Carlson was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Really, Tucker Carlson is fantastic.
He's fantastic.
I never thought I would be a Tucker fan, and
I know, right?
Last year, yeah.
I said on my podcast the other day, never ever over the last whatever it is 5 years have I ever thought I would agree in public with Marjorie Taylor Greene on anything.
Me too.
And then it's like every time she opens her mouth, I'm like, yeah.
She's one of the few Congress people who seems to actually try to represent her constituents.
Yes.
And her constituents being the people who voted for her, not the people who gave her money.
That's
because everybody else is the people who gave the money. That's who they're representing. But she actually, because she is one of the people. She's not supposed to be there.
That's right.
But she got in, and so she's actually representing like her community, and I respect the hell out of her for that.
Me too.
But so I don't agree with some of her policies. Some of her stuff is just like, oh God. But the fact that she represents the people who voted for her, I got so much respect for her for that.
Well, we used to be called Left on Left, and our audience wrote in and complained, and they said, "There's no more left."
No.
And we realize that it's really us against them. or
That's it.
I mean, it's
I'm happy to take my allies wherever I can find them. You know,
and that's where we are.
I say all the time, Gloria, and you're a political scientist. You can expand on this, but I've come to the conclusion that the ideological spectrum is not a straight line from left to right, that it's more of a circle, and it meets at some point. And whether that point is right or left or both or neither, if we can agree and work together on issues that are important to us, I'll take it.
Well, I think one of the things that I could say very, very nicely about John, in my experience in working with him in CAM and in other events and interviews and things like that, John is always such a gentleman with everyone, not just with women or anything, but John is a real gentleman. I mean, he's nice to everyone and respectful to everyone, and I think when we get away from left and right, and we just not even a class issue, the wealthy, the poor, the impoverished, whatever, just if people treat each other, and this is like biblical,
with respect,
with respect, and the 10 commandments are really not a bad way to live, and it's not really a left or right issue. It's just human decency and kindness and respect, and if those are the guiding principles, then people of conscience and justice will always come together, because it's right or wrong, not necessarily left or right anymore.
That's it. It's right or wrong. Exactly right.
Yeah, and we got a lot of wrong in the places of power right now.
Yes, we do.
John, I've got one question for you going back to 9/11.
Oh, he's been wanting to ask this.
I've been wanting to ask you this for a while.
Sit back.
You were there, right? You were at the.
Well, I was in headquarters. Yeah, at the CIA.
But then you left, and then you went to Arlington, and you got to actually see the Pentagon, right?
Oh yeah.
So now I was doing Navy contracts, and when that happened, it was my first job out of college. So I worked with a ton of people who had to. I mean, I was about an hour south of outside of Fredericksburg, and I worked with a lot of people who had to drive up to the Pentagon, drive to the Navy Annex building, drive to the Navy Yard. So when this happened, like everybody was talking about the plane. Something that bugs the hell out of me now. You've got all these conspiracy theorists talking about 9/11, and they say there was no plane that hit the Pentagon.
Right.
I mean, but you were there. You saw it. You saw the wreckage.
Yeah, and my best friend was sitting at a red light right outside the Pentagon and watched the plane go over his car into the side of the Pentagon. So it
drives me nuts, because I don't think a lot of the people around the country understand how public of a place the Pentagon is. It is like right in the middle of 3 major highways, and there's a commuter hub at the Pentagon, and this happened during rush hour.
Yes.
So there were literally tens of thousands of people who would have been in front row seat to watch it happen. If it was anything other than a plane, they would have screamed to high heavens to say that wasn't the plane that hit it.
Yeah.
I just want to get that out there.
You're absolutely right.
It's like, oh, it was a missile. And like, no, that's a fuselage. Because a lot of people, I think they're right when they say the plane can't make that turn and hit the building. Because then it hit the ground first, and then the wreckage slid in.
That's exactly right.
And that's what everybody said back then. But that has not propagated out to the internet.
No, it hasn't.
And people really, because there is that one video you can find where you can see the fuselage sliding on the ground and hitting the building. And I used to work in missile defense, and I'm also like, well, even if that's I'm blanking on what do you call it? The controlled missile, the kind of missile you can actually steer. There's no way you could do it that close to the ground and still hit the building, especially when it has to come over the highway, drop down, and then slam into the building going at that speed, and it only has about 1,000 feet to make that maneuver. And people still think it was a missile. And it's like, if you go and visit that spot, and this is for the people out there who think it wasn't a plane, go to the Pentagon. You can walk right to the spot where
right up to it. Yep.
And you'll see exactly how public of a space that is. And think if it was anything other than a plane, you realize that there were hundreds of thousands of people in the area, in the media area, not to mention the wider area, which would have been like 200 to like 300,000 people who would have been in a position to see it.
Right.
But you were there. You saw it with your own eyes on the day of.
Yes.
So that's why I've been wanting to ask you.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. Yeah, it was
Jayme,
most definitely.
how many
a
years
plane.
did you wait to be able to ask this question?
Oh, only
Jayme?
about 6 months. Because the thing is, the conspiracy theorists talking about it are so adamant that it's not a plane. They're starting to get me to second guess it. And I'm like, no, I worked with a guy who saw the plane when he was driving into work. He saw it flying over the highway. He said he was about at Glebe Road, which
Oh,
is about a
sure.
mile south.
Sure.
And he saw the plane, because you're not supposed to see passenger planes where this plane was. And I worked with a guy who's there. I knew people who were who I worked with in my office at the time. They didn't see the plane, but they were up there and they saw all the stuff, and they talked to the people who did see the plane, and everybody had the same story. But
It
for
did
some
hit
reason,
the
that seems to
accounting
be
office,
lost to
right,
time.
John?
It hit which one?
The accounting office?
Of the Pentagon? It hit there. There were several floors that, and the reason why the deaths weren't higher was because there was so much reconstruction going on inside. But it hit accounting, it hit HR, it hit a conference room. It was like 5 levels that it hit.
Yeah, that section had I believe they just finished renovating it, and they hadn't put the people back into those offices.
Yeah, exactly.
So that section was almost vacant.
But then at the same time, you've got to blame the government for not releasing all the footage.
Yeah, there's tons of footage.
Why didn't they release the footage and just silence all these people by saying, no, it was a plane. Here's the video. We have it from 20 different angles. And they never did.
I saw some footage because I was on a secure network, and we got to see a little bit of it, like about a week or 2 weeks afterwards. And I remember because one of my friends said, oh, they got the plane that hit the Pentagon. And then everybody in my office went and shoved 6 or 7 of us in a cubicle watching this 20-second clip over and over and over again. We didn't see the plane hit the Pentagon, but we saw the plane flying where it's not supposed to be.
Well, I think what you're talking about,
I've never seen that ever again ever since then.
I think what you're talking about, maybe 2 techniques that we see. One is flooding the zone, where you just put so much information out there, incorrect information, correct information, that you muddy the water. And it's very hard for, analysts to actually get a handle on something, because some of the information is good and some of the information is terrible. And, you can kind of discredit some of these groups because they'll seize on some aspect of it that is, makes that's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And then they throw the stuff that makes sense out the window because it gets this patina of sloppy journalism on it.
I talked to a nun. This is about a year ago. A nun came up to me and told me that it was a missile that hit the Pentagon. And I said, oh, sister, with all due respect, it was a plane. It was an actual plane. No, it was a missile. I said, but what about, the 240 people that were on the plane that no longer exist? And she looked me right in the eye and she said they were flown to a nearby airbase and they were executed. And I was like, okay, well, that's, that's one theory. Okay. I'm not going to convince her. So if that's what she's going with, that's how I left it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should let John leave, since he was kind enough to go into so many topics that we've just been dying to ask you.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you, John.
Come back
good to
Sorry
see
about the
both.
technical glitches at the start.
That's
dig into that and figure out what happened.
Not a problem at all. Good to see you both.
Same.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for everybody for watching. And we'll be back next week with another episode. And thanks to Jeremy. He had this split. But we'll be back. And this is Uncontrolled Opposition. See you next time.